Welcome everybody. How's it going? All right. So, yeah, guys, this is going to be our first episode of Nat One-on-One. I hope you're ready. I hope you're prepared. We have an excellent guest with us today. So let me go over one thing real quick. I'm going to go over a quick introduction that I'm going to do pretty much every episode. As you can see right now, we're currently live. It's face to face, but I will be editing this down to a podcast at a later time. So I have to have like a little intro. They're gonna have the Nat One-on-One kind of thing. The one thing that's gonna set us apart. Well, anyways, you get what I'm trying to say. But let's go ahead and get into it. So, welcome everyone. This is Nat One-on-One, a podcast where we gain insight on the individuals on the tabletop role-playing game community and their current projects, and what kind of stuff they may have in store for us in their future. I'm your host, Dan Munoz, and joining me today is an amazing and prolific writer and creator, the lead designer of such big titles such as Darkhold, Secrets of Zentarum, Elminster's Candlekeep Companion, Strixhaven's First Year Orientation, the hit series The Heir of Orcas 1 through 4, and many, many others, all of which can be found on dmsguild.com. Co-host of the wonderful podcast Return to Everquest, and active duty major in the United States Army, it's Anthony Joyce-Rivera. How's it going?
Thank you, Dan. That's awesome. I feel like I'm in a wrestling match or something with that intro. I'm pumped. I'm ready to go.
No, it's great.
Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute joy to be able to reach out to you, and I really appreciate you taking the time out.
Of course. Yeah, anytime.
So this is going to be the first episode. So if there's any hiccups or anything that's going on or whatever, we'll fix it as we go. We you know how it kind of goes with things like this, but man, I'm super pumped to get into it. Matter of fact, one of the people in chat were the original ones to suggest like a few names, put out like a big list of names of like who would they like to see in something like this. And you popped up and I was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's get them on here. Let's go.
Well, and thanks. So, whoever's in chat, I appreciate the love. Thank you so much.
So yeah, you are already pretty well known in the community as well. So let's go ahead and start things off. First off, let's talk about your military kind of presence. That's kind of a new thing, not new thing per se, but more like an original thing that you don't really see too much in our community. Now we do have veterans and stuff like that. Me myself, I'm a veteran, but active duty. So I know recently you had a stream with Michael Sinclair,
Yep.
and you guys did for doing it on Veterans Day.
Yep.
And you were advocating for a program called OSD.
Yes. Yeah. Charity OSD. So they're a veterans charity, and what they do predominantly is raise money for what's called supply drops. They're about $1,000 for a supply drop, and that's what our goal was. We raised $1,250, so we met that goal. And they package like video games, tabletop games, and they deploy them overseas to veterans to game with while they're deployed. And it's amazing because I got into tabletop in the deserts of Kuwait and Iraq in 2015 when I was deployed. I was a company commander at the time, and one of my soldiers played D&D. And they said, "Hey, sir, I'll run D&D for you and some of the soldiers in the unit." And so every Sunday, we had some time off dedicated to D&D sessions, and I would play with them, and it was a blast. So this is our way of giving back. And Michael Sinclair, who had served in the Navy as a corpsman, he had also got into D&D, I believe, through playing overseas while deployed and stuff like that. So it was really cool for us to give back in that way so that future generations of veterans can both have entertainment when they're away from their family and friends for long periods of time in austere environments, and then get into the community, which is so great. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's very surprising to hear, of course, on the outside, not knowing that there are things that you can do while you're deployed, and you do have those times of downtime. So to hear like you and your troops were out, out in the middle of nowhere playing some D&D is pretty awesome and heartfelt to hear. At least you're giving a little bit of heart back to the community by doing this. So yeah, they do these huge drops. Is that where they kind of give like supplies such as like tabletop games or other
Yeah,
things that are included?
they do different video games for consoles and stuff like that, movies. They also have like a leadership program for veterans that have gotten out of the military to get training and education and stuff like that as they transition into the civilian sector. So they're kind of multifaceted organization. We focus more on the gaming aspect to promote pushing out the tabletop games, overseas. And
Right.
yeah, but they have a plethora of things to do. So it's a great charity. It's OSD. Their website is whereosd.com.
Right, and that's awesome, that's great. Um, so you did get to play with your friends, like, out in the desert. I have to know, what was your first foray into the game? What did you
Ooh,
play? Like, what was going on? Were you
okay.
DM? Were you playing?
So I bought the core rules because this is January 2015. So to set the stage, I'm in company command. I'm told, hey, the unit just got back from Afghanistan and I had just taken over. They're like, this unit's not deploying. And I was a forward support company commander for an aviation unit. So the Chinooks, Blackhawks, and Apaches and stuff like that, we provided all the fuel and ammunition and stuff for them. Um, and ISIS happened, right? So this is after we've left Iraq the first time. ISIS is now back on the stage, and President Obama came on TV December 2014, and he says, "We're going to stop ISIS. We're sending troops, and we're going to have people on the ground, right away." That next, within 24 hours, they get a phone call. They're like, "Hey, that's you and your unit. Pack your bags. You're going." And so we had, I believe it was 50 days from when President Obama went on TV to us hitting boots on ground in Iraq, and then we went and we had forces in Iraq to handle them. So I bought the core rule set because it had just come out, and I remember
Right.
my wife Jennifer. She's like, "You're not going to waste your money on these books, right? Because they were expensive, like $150, for the whole
Yeah,
thing."
for the whole set?
Yeah, yeah. She's like, "You better play this game." And I had always heard, like, I'm a nerd growing up. I played, Diablo and all these other and Baldur's Gate back in the day, but I had never like played tabletop because I didn't have like the understanding at the time to like play it and read it, do it myself. I didn't have the friends to do it. Um, so when I took the books over there, one of my specialists, he's like, "Hey, sir, I played 3.5 edition. So like, let me look at these books and we can figure it out how to do fifth." So I gave him the books and I made a bard. That was my first character. It was an elf
Heck
bard.
yeah.
And
Heck yeah.
yeah, and then we rocked
Bards
it out.
represent.
There we go. There we go. So we rocked it out in the desert there. So he was an E4 and
Mhm.
he ran for the whole game. He DM'd the game for about me and there was about seven of us, seven soldiers, ranging from one of my lieutenants to some of my NCOs to some of the enlisted. So it was really cool because being in the military, there's that barrier of officer, NCO, enlisted, and we broke that with D&D, which is super
Yeah.
cool. So we had a great time.
Yeah. That's excellent. That is excellent. I love to hear, like, the stories of the, like, original taste of the game and everything like that. I'm glad you got to share it with, like, so many other people like that,
Hmm.
and really bring joy to just, like, a probably not so great situation, so
Hmm.
you know? Anyways, that's awesome, that's awesome. So you started off in your military career as well, now you're a major, yeah, but you started off your career as an enlisted man, right?
Yeah.
I look back, you were a specialist when you first started?
Yeah. So I came in enlisted, and how I did that was this was back in 2008. I had just graduated college and I wanted to join. I thought I was only going to do like 3 years in the military. So I joined up E4, and then I go through basic training at Fort Benning, and then I go through. I went to officer candidate school. So it's funny because there's a lot of like bureaucratic nuance in the military. So I technically came in as an E4, got promoted to sergeant E5. Am in officer candidate school. Before I commissioned, they had to DD 214 me out of the military. So then I
Yeah,
got like a veteran status because it shows I was like honorably discharged.
yep,
Then they bring me
discharged.
in the next day, 24 hours later, as a lieutenant. So like if you look at my career, it's like specialist, sergeant, honorably discharged.
Discharged.
So yeah, brought in the next day, and then second lieutenant, all the way up to major. And so now I came in as an officer as a logistician, but now I transitioned back in 2017. I'm a strategist, and It's a small niche area. There's about 400 of us in the military. And what we do is we look at big problems. So some of the big problems you might know of that I've worked on are like the summit with North Korea, the
Mhm.
President Trump summits there. I
Yeah.
helped the Department of Defense look at policy during that time. Did some work on Capitol Hill, and then when COVID happened, I was part of a task force to help the Army's response to COVID nationwide. And recently, I was in San Antonio, deployed there for the Afghan refugee crisis. So when
Mhm.
all the Afghans came over, my job was to help look at how do we place them in America, in society, and how do we do that. So, but I just left that, and now I'm here in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, doing Army stuff.
Those are some huge career bookmarks, huge ones, and matter of fact, we were just in Germany right before the Afghan, kind of influx, coming in
Mm,
from there, so that was we had just missed it right when we came back to the States, so,
mm.
yeah, I mean, those are huge bookmarks, and it's so cool that you can be able to say that you were part of history in terms of, like, doing things during that moment in time. Um, and speaking of, like, these big moments in time, you as a creative writer for TTRPGs and everything that you kind of put forth your effort into creatively, what is it that you're doing while also being active duty? Because I know active duty took all my time up and just, like, my entire brain was used for just making sure everything was good to go there. I mean, you are pumping out some amazing literature. How do you do
Thank
it?
you.
Like, what is it that you're thinking, you're doing?
Yeah.
What's your
So
flow?
I am. Yeah, I'm busy with, well, one, my full time job there in the military, and then also I have my family. So my wife Jen and my three young boys. I have a 2 year old, a 3 year old, and a 5 year old. So I'm full. I'm with them when I'm not at work. Full time dad in that arena when I can. And I stopped. It really came down to, like, I stopped playing video games and was just and now I just write, and I don't get to play as much D&D as I like to, because unfortunately I'm writing stuff. So it's like the DM curse, right? So when you
Yeah.
play D&D, you're loving it, and then you're like, "I want to DM," and then you DM, and then you're stuck being a DM forever. You're like, "I never get to play." And then, like, the next echelon above that is like design, and then you're just designing all the time, and you don't get to play as much as you like. But it's a great creative outlet. Like, I really love it. I've been trained through. I've done a lot of academic stuff in my life, and then the military, being a strategist, part of that is like a rigorous writing programs they put us through. So I've been lucky where my professional job actually has helped me in this hobby, and then
Oh, that
vice
sounds
versa.
really useful.
I get really good at concise writing, and my flows are really good. So I enjoy it. I have a blast. Like, it's kind of relaxing and enjoyable, and I get fulfilled when I release something. So I kind of have that drive to always keep creating and putting stuff out. And it's super fun. It's like, I don't know, it's great.
Well, I mean, it's pretty impressive the amount of, stuff that you've pumped out, especially with the recent, like I mean, the huge influx of, like, new D&D material that's just, like, coming out, like, every other month. It's like,
It's wild.
yeah, it's something new and something new. You're keeping up with them, man. I've every time I see you, you got something new coming out that kinda coincides with the new thing, so it's super exciting to watch.
Thank you.
Um being an established author and director and creator of all this stuff in the D&D and TTRPG world and stuff like that. Let's dive into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
Um, Going back to the beginning, where did you really find your love for like writing in general? I know you said you played video games and stuff like that. What made you make that jump?
Oh, interesting. Like, so this is funny because I was talking about this the other day with Jen, and I was saying my mom has these like little notebooks from when I was a kid, and they have like little poems and stories, and I could see that, like, when I was younger, I'm writing like stories about like Warcraft at the time. I play Warcraft, and there was like a map builder in the game, so you could build maps, and then I would write like little stories to go with the maps. And I realized, like, I have always been in a writer. I've always enjoyed telling stories. So when I put my first pen to paper, so to speak, for D&D, was back in 2018, I believe. I was looking to buy some Dwarven Forge, and
Oh,
Dwarven Forge is, it's expensive, right? So
oh yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
said, "Hey, this is website DMs Guild," and like people were selling stuff on it. So I told my wife, I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm gonna take some money, aside, and I'm gonna buy art and like learn how to make a module, and I'm gonna sell it. And then I told her, I bet I'm gonna, I'm gonna be able to make my money back, and then I'll use that money to like buy Dwarven Forge, right? So that was like the concept was like a self-funding hobby. I haven't bought any Dwarven Forge yet.
Oh,
I'm just
no.
buying more art and stuff for my adventures that I do. So it's like a, self-defeating in a way. But but here I am. So yeah, I started doing it, and I wrote the Heir of Orcas for Adventures League, and that was my first like adventure I wrote, and I had so much fun doing it, and like the creative. There's something about like making a module that is beyond just writing, because writing is one dimensional, right? You write a story and that's it. Like if I wrote a novel, it'd just be pages in a book. But when you do a module, you have like the artwork, and then the story comes to life in a way it really would in other forms of media. And then people play it, and then people are having their own like versions of the story that they're
Mhm.
telling with the adventure. So then you have like, there's YouTube videos popping up of people's live plays, and they're all different and they're so cool, and their stories are just amazing beyond anything I could write, but it's coming from a shared experience that we all have. I wrote it and they've all played, and everybody's so like that just seemed really cool to me. And then as I started moving away from just like solo production, because at first it was just me, I started working with collaborators. And one of my biggest collaborators is Justice Armin, who we've done a lot of adventures and products together with. And my military experience now kicked in as I'm a very good project manager. I can organize, I can lead a team of people to accomplish an objective, whether that's writing or getting deadlines on time. So my military experience brought together the project management side of production and allowed us to make these really great products for everybody out there and put them on DM's Guild. And it kind of just snowballed. And now we're just making great stuff, fun stuff. And I think right now where my head is at is, and you'll see it with a lot of the newer stuff I have coming out soon, and we can talk about that later, but is innovation in design. Like, how do we innovate the game to be more immersive for the DM and the player? And so that's kind of the flavor I've been putting on stuff lately.
Yeah. I mean, I can only imagine how cool it is as just a DM, giving, your 10% and allowing the players to make the 90% of the story. But coming up with a story and having people build entire like epic tales with what you had created originally, that in itself could be extremely fulfilling. So yeah, I can see where that comes from. Um so I wanted to ask, did you start kind of like slow with the writing, or did you just like jump right in? Was it I'm gonna test something out, I'm gonna test the waters maybe, or did you just have this entire epic story ready to go and just like throw down the very first thing you did?
I had so my Heir of Orcus was two parts. There's a verse one and verse two. Um, it's total of 8 hours, and so that's a pretty ambitious, I think, for a first project. I will admit, especially with all the art and stuff. But what helped me was Adventures League has a format for their adventures. There's like a framework you have to write to, and so when I had this template that I needed to kind of like fill out, and I was running Adventures League stuff at the time as a DM online, so I was familiar with the layout. Um, I was able to just recreate my own version of that using that template. So it was easy. So if you're a writer out there and you're like, "Hey, how do I get started?" Pull DM's Guild up or Drive Through RPG and look at adventures that you really like that are usable for you, and then take their template and kind of like overlay it on yours, and fill your stuff in on that. It makes the job so much easier. And there's a style guide out there as well that Watsy put out. Use their style guide; it'll help you to create adventures within what we see as the norm for layout and stuff. And you can just start plucking away and writing. So it wasn't like an epic campaign style thing I had going on. It was more like a self-contained story with an open ending. So I have made additional verses, like verse three came out and then verse four. So I left it open with like, I like this storyline, but I'm going to make it almost like a movie that you can watch it and you're satisfied, and it doesn't
Mhm.
leave like a big cliffhanger where you're like, screw the director, this jerk, they're
Yeah,
playing with my
yeah.
emotions. Like at least you could feel satisfied, but it leaves like that last moment where at the end you see the villain's eyes open up, or and you're like, oh, okay, there could be a
It's one of
sequel.
those you're always surprised that when it's, "Oh, they're actually coming out
Yeah,
with a sequel for
yeah, you're
it."
like, okay,
But you're
cool,
always
yeah,
super happy.
yeah, yeah. You're like, okay, cool, but you don't feel like it's not like Lord of the Rings where you're like, I gotta wait a year and a half
Yeah.
to watch
Oh, yeah.
it. Yeah, yeah.
So, okay, that's awesome. That's great. So I have to ask though, out of all those projects, you have something against Orcas, right? You got like that vendetta, that 1 through 4, and then like with your new stuff coming out. I have to know which one of all the like you have like an encyclopedia of different writings. Which one do you think is your favorite? Not including your new Tenacious Bard
Okay,
versus Orcas.
if I'm
Which
not
one do you think
talking
is like your favorite?
if I'm not talking new stuff, there's a lot of hard ones to pick from. If I had to be like, what's my favorite? Um, I think my Air of Orcus like originals, like they're like so fun to me and cool. I like them. They have like, if you haven't seen them out there, they have like these like Nintendo 8-bit art style,
Yeah. Oh
16-bit
yeah.
art, and it's all like retro themed, and it's just wild the way we open up the adventure. I won't spoil anything, but like the opening and there's a lot of like psychological things going on that play with the normal tropes. So when you're a player, you'll go through the adventure and you're like, "Am I supposed to be doing this?" But the reality is, anything you do is fine. Like the story fits anything you go. There's no like right path or good path or bad path. It's all
Right.
like allowed, and you just see some wild stuff come out of that. Like people's playthroughs, they're like, "I did this or I did that or I killed these people or I saved those people," and it's just like so different. It's fun.
Have you ever been like, "That is not what I intended at all?"
There's some funny YouTube videos on the Air of Orcus on YouTube people can look up, and they have like just some crazy stories because there's like some PvP that can happen. So there'll be like some stories of people just like killing their buddies. Like,
Oh, jeez.
yeah, it's horrible. It's not supposed to happen, but it gets it
You
could
you're
get
telling me that
intense.
there's not a page in the back to, like, how to stab your friends in the back properly in this
it's
campaign?
yeah, it's wild, but it's a good time. So yeah, that I think I like a lot. Another one that's close to my heart is the Blood Hunter, and the Blood
Oh, yeah.
Hunter is a one-on-one adventure, and I like it because that's what got me into one-on-one adventure design. Um, but and for those who don't know, you have a duet style adventure where it's one DM and one player. So I took it a step further, and I believe I'm the only one on DM Skill that has done that, where I have built an entire adventure that's a duet around an entire class. And the reason why that's so special when you play it is it's so immersive because everything is thematically built around all the features of that class. So
Right.
when since you're the only player, it's like everything is about you and it's about showcasing your abilities. So the flavor is super cool. That one, the Blood Hunter, has like a Witcher vibe with a little bit of Mandalorian vibe in there. Um, and it's just super immersive, and there's like music built in, and it's a good design experiment, and I think it paid off. That's why I did my newest one coming out, the Bard one.
Yeah, and speaking of, I when I was looking up all the things that you've kind of accomplished, the one-on-one adventures really stuck out to me as something, one, like you were saying, very original, being that, you get to take that one character and really dive into it as much as possible with, your DM and everything. And the fact that they are class-based really digs into the same kind of aspects you would run into like a long-term campaign where you are like, "Okay, let's dig into your backstory now," or let's dig into your backstory, but you really get to experience that like right off the bat and have that really in-depth like story that you get to share with whoever you're playing with, which is really, really cool. And speaking of the one-on-one adventures, you have a new adventure coming out soon, and you just played it just recently during the Veterans Day game called Tenacious Bard versus Orcas. Would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this one's probably like my most one of my most. There's one other one I have coming out I'll talk about, but this is definitely up there for tied with probably most innovative design. We tried a lot of new things. So you start off as a level 6 bard. The reason for that is these duets are perfect for if you have a new person that's playing D&D, never played it before. You could play this with them. It's actually very simple to run and simple to play as a player. But at level 6, you get a ton of features for your class. So when you're playing the adventure, you're getting like the full feel of a bard. And so when you play it, you'll know like long term, hey, if I'm going to play a campaign, what type of class would I want to play? You play this adventure, you're going to know if you like bards or not. So that's number one. Number two, the Tenacious Bard vs. Orcas is completely themed around like heavy metal music, Tenacious D, right? Like,
Hell yeah.
so what I did was when I designed, part of my creative process is you have people that they take a lot of notes or they have an outline or all this stuff. My creative process is I sit there and I marinate on like themes, emotional themes I want to get, and I listen to music. So I listen to like a month of like heavy metal and like Tenacious D. And as I'm like just thinking about this adventure, and what I do is I pair the music with the story beats. So as you go through the adventure, I have different parts where it's like, cue this music and it's linked to Spotify, and you click it and it'll play a Spotify soundtrack that goes thematically with the exact scene that you're playing. So as you're going through the adventure, you're having this like music that's playing that goes exactly with like the theme and the experience that you're experiencing in the game. It's all telling a story, and I wanted to make it really epic. Like with a duet, what's cool is you can like bend the rules a little bit. In terms of what the character can do. So I add new mechanics for like rock offs where you have a musical avatar and you use your bardic inspiration to like power them up. And at the end, you fight Orcas and you can kill them and you can save the multiverse from the blood war that is going on. And it's amazing. And then we have some fun stuff where you can sign a record label with Asmodeus and, start your bardic career as
And all
Asmodeus's
yeah,
bard. Yeah.
and all it took was a rock off.
That's right. That's right.
That's
So
fucking great. That is
mhm.
great. I love it. I love it. I mean, that in itself just screams originality and that whole fact that it's that one-on-one duet. I absolutely adore that. I'm really wanting to get into playing D&D like with my kids and stuff like that, or getting to play in D&D with my wife, without
Mhm.
having to go out and gather 5 other people to, come together and get our schedules going. I could just sit down and play a game and have a really good time with them. Just like, sitting down and playing chess or checkers or something like that. You could
Yep,
really enjoy a D&D experience with these kinds of games. I do
absolutely.
have to know though, you mentioned Tenacious D. I'm a big Tenacious D fan. You said it was your inspiration. Were you listening to Tenacious D a long time before this and it's like a really like big inspiration?
Yeah, in high school, I think they came out in when I was in high school, I feel like my junior year, senior year, early 2000s, like, I remember hearing them on the radio. I'm like, oh, these guys are so fun and cool. And I was just like jamming out to them. And they've always stuck to me. My wife, she hates Jack Black. I don't know why
Oh
she hates.
no.
I know. I'm like, what's
Oh
going on? Jack
no.
Black's the best, like Nacho Libre and like all his, like, I love his music. Yeah, he has like slapstick, poor humor stuff. Sometimes it's just like, it's kind of like not the smartest stuff, but I love it. It's great, and his music was inspirational in that sense. Like it's fun. It's someone who doesn't take themselves seriously. It's like,
Mhm.
look, we're just gonna have fun time and we're gonna rock out and it's gonna be great. And I felt that was like perfect for me. And I thought, the themes of his music were, going to fight the devil and with music, like
Oh
it
yeah.
lined up perfectly with D&D. And I was just like, I have to do this, and this
It
is it.
really truly did. I remember watching that one shot with you, and you're the Veterans Day
Yeah.
special, and I was following because every time it would come up, you would be like, "Okay, play this song. Okay, play this
Yeah.
song," and I had it playing in the background while you guys were playing, and I was like, "This is so cool." It literally just like enhances the scene so much.
Yeah. And
But I have
and
to say, oh, go ahead, go ahead.
no, yeah. So, and what else is cool is the reason why it's not out yet. So the thing is completely done and ready. We're just waiting on the final illustrations. So, like as you saw the cover, beautiful artwork by Brian Patterson. So I teamed up with him, and he is fully illustrating this thing. So there's like I think there's 15 interior art pieces all in that style. It's like loaded jam pack. So when you go through it, there's you see the bar on the front. It's her name's Mika, and the illustrations are like Mika going through the adventure. So it's almost like a comic book. Or so when you get it and you read it, it's going to be like the story of the adventure, but playing out from Mika's perspective. And as a DM, you can just get inspired by that, and you can share it with the player. Like, look, here's the person you're fighting right now, and it's just really like Warduke or Thaco the Clown. Like, there's so much stuff that's in there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Speaking of the art, I mean, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous art by Brian Patterson. what is it like to have, like, that image that you had in your head pop out and be just so freaking awesome? Because
Oh,
that image, just the cover image alone is so energetic and so powerful and so, like, stylized. It's so
mm.
cool. What was that like t for you?
It's great. So I've worked with Brian before. He actually has some art in my early Air of Orcas adventures. So it's funny because like he does a ton of web comics. He's a very well known illustrator. And when I
Mhm.
first got on the scene, he was someone whose art I looked up to and still do to this day. Um, so I wanted to work with him. So I've kind of like been slowly getting to know him over the years. And then this time I'm like, he's into metal too. So I'm like, hey, and he loves bards. He's like obsessed with bards. So I'm like, hey, look, I want to do an adventure with bards, but it's a heavy metal bard. He's like, hell yeah, I'm in, man. So we talked about like what should the art be, and we start talking about like the cover and the different themes and whatnot. And he's like, we need to make it like a blockbuster movie poster for a summer like flick, And I'm like, hell yeah, we gotta put like War Duke's face up there. You have Tasha the witch and Orcas in the background. And so we collaborate and we like bounce ideas off each other and it came to life. And it was just, it's so surreal. And that's one of the funnest part of creation when you create something is to work with an artist and like see the custom art come to life and bring your story to life in a way that without them it's not possible. So I mean, I'm just like over the moon to see that thing done and what you all will think of it. I'm sure you'll love it.
Yeah. I mean, collaboration is the name of the game in our world, the
Hmm.
TTRPG world. Collaborations, collaborations, collaborations. If you can work with somebody to better whatever product you or whatever idea you had in the first place, do it. Get that
Hmm.
chance, do it. Absolutely. So we were talking about music and everything like that. Do you have a favorite Tenacious D song? And
Yeah,
why is it Wonder Boy?
I was gonna
Because
say Wonder
because
Boy.
because Wonder Boy is the
Yes,
best song.
yes, yes, yes. Like, oh, Wonder Boy is so good. I used to listen to that thing on repeat. Oh, it's so good. I don't know.
And
It's
then the
like a
music video?
Oh, yeah. Oh, he's going up fighting the Hydra, climbing the mountain.
Yes.
It's like a D&D story, right? It literally is. It's like an adventure story. It's
I
so epic.
literally I was listening to that stuff before I even knew what D&D was, and I
Mhm.
was like, "Okay, now I know where my D&D inspirations came from." Like, I already
Mhm.
love this song. It's so
Mhm.
good. But yeah, oh, man. I have to ask as somebody who has never created, like, an entire module, I've kind of created small things being a DM and stuff like that, with custom worlds and custom scenarios and stuff like that. Is there anything when you are putting something out to the public, was there anything that you discovered while playtesting? Let's say, we'll say Tenacious Bard versus Orcas. Was there anything that you discovered while playtesting that was like a great idea maybe that didn't playtest well? Or maybe that you had to like change later on to better fit a public audience?
Yeah, I will say so playtesting is very important. And it can be done, you can streamline it. And so the way I do it, I'm just going to share kind of like my common practice because some creators have actually adopted this method. So I make a Google Doc, a Google form, and it will have like specific questions related to each section of the adventure. Like, how fun was the overall adventure? How easy was it to run? For this chapter, what was the best thing about it? What was the worst thing about it? And you can kind of fill it in. What I do is I'll put out a call for play testers. I get a bunch of responses. They fill out a form, a Google Doc, um, to sign up with their email and whatnot. And then after I get all the emails and the agreements that they want to run it, I'll have like a deadline when it's due. I send them this other form and the adventure. So they run it and they could like go in the Google Doc and fill it out and then upload it. And what I'll do is I'll comb through that. So for this Bard one, this one was play tested 20 times by 20 different DMs. Um, and I'll start to look at patterns of I look at like, which one is the least fun chapter. And I'll kind of hone in on that. Okay, there's like 12 DMs saying this chapter is not that fun. And what's not fun about it. And there's not necessarily something in particular like design wise. It's just you'll see like usually combats. They're like this combat was too easy or this combat was too hard. Or this was I'll give you one that's actually sticks out a lot. Some of the monsters have a lot of hit points, so it becomes a slugfest. It'll get really like long and drawn out. So I have to go back and tweak. How do I make the encounter take less time? Because more time for the encounter is bad. So you find ways to tweak that. How do you make the combats more exciting? Maybe add some crazy effects to like insta kill somebody after the fourth round of combat, or something
Right.
like that, where you can like introduce things to just speed it up but make it fun. Um, and playtesters really do help like fine tune these things. So there's a lot of work behind this. He's like, the stuff I put out is not because I'm some great genius and I know how to write perfect adventures. Like there's a lot of playtesting that goes on and a lot of DMs that are and players that are providing me great feedback. And that's the important thing is like, um, don't when I publish an adventure, this may sound foreign to some people. I don't run my adventure before I publish it. There's a reason why. With this one, I did because I had to do it for the stream. When you run your
Right.
adventure, your mind, you know what you wrote and how it should be. So you're not reading all the words on the page. You kind of like know, and then you're just running it and doing well. So what I do is I'll have other DMs, and I get again at least 10. I have 10 play tests where they run it because I want someone who's not me to run it to identify all the weaknesses. Otherwise, if I run it myself, I'll say, well, in that part, it was easy for me, or that part, it was fun for me. And I bias myself as the writer. So I'm like, look, I can't run it because I'm not going to bias my thought process at least until all the playtesting is done. So when all the playtesting happens, I get all their feedback. I haven't run it myself. So now I'm just looking at what these non-biased people say. I take their feedback, I incorporate it, and then I'll usually run it like like on a stream you saw me or something.
Right. Right.
But at that point, it's in pretty damn good shape because everybody's giving me great stuff to it. So
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, this is pretty good. So that's just a little tip out there for because I think one of the biggest things creators have is like um, incorporating constructive criticism and feedback because sometimes it can hurt, right? You're like, oh, it hurts to hear somebody say like this part of this adventure sucks. But if you get past those feelings and you make it better, it's going to be better for everybody.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think again, it comes into it's a weird way of going about saying it, but collaboration doesn't necessarily mean with another creator per se, but collaboration with the community as well may also improve, your writing or your whatever you are putting out there for public consumption.
Yeah.
That public opinion can really help you to build whatever you're doing, be it streaming, be it podcast, be it anything. Getting an opinion doesn't have to be like, "Oh, shoot, I suck. Okay, well, I guess I'll quit now." That little whatever they give you kinda thing, you really grab onto that and then use it to build on whatever you're making and make it better.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely, a great way to go about playtesting and everything like that. That's Thank you very much. That was very insightful. I didn't even think about the whole, like, not playing it myself, and that was very cool.
Yeah. No worries.
So, to switch gears, completely, yeah?
Okay.
We have talked about, RPGs, we've talked about, TTRPGs, we've talked about D&D and stuff like that, but let's talk about old school RPGs. I'm
Oh,
talking
okay.
old school MMO RPGs,
Yeah.
if you will. Return to EverQuest. So what in the world inspired you to come up with this podcast in general?
Okay, so this is a funny story. So I have a podcast called Return to EverQuest. And for those who don't know or may know, EverQuest is a 20-year-old MMORPG. It's actually came out in 1999. So it's older than 20 years.
Yeah, 22.
Yeah, so it's an old, and it's one of the ones I grew up playing, and it was again I didn't have, I was in 1999 I was in middle school, so at that age again I couldn't play like tabletop role playing games because I didn't have like the friends who could read books and understand that. Uh, I just didn't have a group, so I played EverQuest, and that was kind of like my version of Dungeons and Dragons, right? But anyway, I wanted to make. I'm into D&D, and I said, maybe one day I would like to make a D&D podcast, but I don't know how to podcast. And I would be very embarrassed if like the first podcast I came out with was a D&D podcast and then like I suck at podcasting. It's a double whammy on me. So I said, I'm going to go like under the radar and I'm going to make this a podcast about EverQuest just to like get the skills of how to make a podcast. You
Under
know?
the radar, he
Yeah.
says,
I'm
and
like,
then literally this podcast blows up within the EverQuest community.
I know. I'm like, so like we make this podcast and it just like blows up. I'm like, what the hell? Like there's so many people out there who are still like obsessed with EverQuest and it's great. It's amazing. Like we get a ton of downloads, like more than I ever thought. Like people are leaving ratings and reviews all the time. And it's just so cool. But it's kind of like that tells you something because EverQuest has its roots in Dungeons and Dragons, so it's like
Sure.
super weird to see like the cyclical nature. Like the creators played D&D, they had these actual like the lore in their home campaigns. They made the MMO, it blew up, and then it kind of was the high king at one time until World of Warcraft came. But people still love it and play it, and it shows you like there's something about RPGs, and I think MMOs are like a cousin to tabletop because it kind of immerses you the same way you're playing a character in that fantasy realm. And just people connect, and it's crazy to see that like people are still playing it 22 years later.
Yeah.
Um, and loving it because I think D&D is the same way. Like it's been out since the early 70s, and people are still playing D&D today that played like original basic D&D back in the day. And it's just really cool to see. And so yeah, so that's Return to Everquest. And so I do that with my brother and my best friend Carlos, one of my best friends, and we have like little lore segments and we have like a little story going on. It's a fun time.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna say you co-host with your friends, Steven, Carlos, and Derek, and they're all
Yep.
on there.
Yep.
But I'd like to also point out that you had said, you created characters and you even, like, went to different realms, like a realm and stuff like that, and you do lore drops and stuff, which is super cool. But I gotta talk about your awesome character named N excuse me if I get it wrong, but Nerf and Perf.
Nerf and
Nerf
Perf.
Nerf
Oh,
and
yeah.
Perf.
Nerf
The
and Perf.
Enchanter.
Yeah. Um, so this is gonna be funny. So Nerf and Perf is actually, if you go to my Air of Orcas adventures,
Mhm.
there's a gnome Nerf and Perf in there. And so that's where Nerf and Perf comes from. And so it's all connected. It's all
Hell yeah.
connected.
It's cyclical, like you said, it's
It's all connected. So I love that character. He's like this little gnome that just is, ugly and has like low self-confidence. And so I figured Enchanter is great, right? Because that's why he does like he turns into Captain Nerfenperf, like this, muscular superhero type guy. And this is part of storytelling, right? Is in like the adventures and stuff that I even make, how do I transmit lore to the player and the DM and not let it bore you to death? So in Return to EverQuest, we said we at the first like one or two episodes, we kind of like we didn't really know the format, what we were doing. So the lore was just kind of like read and it was boring. And I'm like, you know what? Like, let's make it a story. Like, let's put the characters into the world and we'll tell a story that is also conveying lore to the listener. So as a listener, you're subconsciously absorbing the lore, but you're hearing it through a story. So it's engaging and fun. And then we kind of went with that. And so we have our different characters and they interact. My brother's is Ever Nerd, who is a real person who got transported into the world of EverQuest. It's like the
That
weirdest thing. Yeah, he's like,
yeah, the isekai. He got teleported in.
yeah,
That never happens here on That One Fun. We don't do that.
yeah. And we have Tickle Winks. So we're a bunch of gnomes, and we play on the time lock progression servers on EverQuest, which is the ones that start on classic and they open up slowly. And people always get weirded out by gnomes. So like we're like this little group of gnomes that are going around together, and everybody's like, "What the hell was these gnomes everywhere?" People have a thing with gnomes, but they're
Yeah.
cool. Yeah.
What's it like to the nostalgia has got to be insane every time you jump back on. What's it like to go back to a 20-year-old game and enjoy it with, like, a bunch of friends that truly enjoy it just as much, if not more than you?
It's been fun because my brother, he works for Department of Homeland Security. He's busy a lot. So we don't have, and he lives in Florida. I'm in the military. I'm always away. So when we started doing this is like a way for us to reconnect on a weekly basis. So we play, and we get to hang out. And what's cool about like EverQuest is it's a slower. It was a different time, right? In MMOs, like it was a
Oh,
grindy
big
game.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now the experience is like faster, but it still has like the original game design mechanics. So it's a slow paced game. So like we're playing and we're talking about like, hey, what'd you do this week? You know, what's going on? and we're seeing it with different eyes. Like the game, we're seeing it like 20 something years later. And so we can appreciate some of the game design for its time, how it was, but we can also analyze it and be like, oh, it's so interesting that they have it this way because of this reason, you know?
Mhm.
And you can kind of like peel back the onion, especially now that I do game design on my own. I can peel back and say, like, I get why you had long spawn rates and these rooms because you needed for a game mechanic to do this, this, and this. So it's
Right.
kind of fun to do that. And again, it's good to just hang out with your friends and play a game and talk and do a little podcast. It's cool.
Yeah, and you kinda get to pick it apart, you know, and take it for what it is now 20 years later from when you first started and, big dinner plate eyes, and you're just playing the game to play it and stuff like that, and you're not really
Yeah.
worrying about anything, but then, like, later on, you're like, "What the heck is that? Why would they do that?" Or
Yeah.
like
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So is there anything like in the podcast that anybody has brought up to you? Because I know you have your like lore sections and stuff like that where you talk about the past and the actual in like story influences that go on in EverQuest. Has anybody brought up that an instance that you were like surprised that they knew about, or maybe that was crazy or off the wall that you barely remember that was like holy crap.
Like a lore in EverQuest
Like,
itself.
yeah, like, well, let's say they remembered something that you hadn't remembered, and you were like, "Oh, that's great. Let's talk about that on the podcast."
Yeah, yeah. There's a guy, Zaid God, who's on Twitch. He does a lot of stuff, and he knows a lot of lore. But there's some wild stuff like the lore in EverQuest. Some of it gets so you just like there's one zone, Befallen, or sorry, Unrest, and it's like this bloodbath, like this, you know, this priest is there, and then like some hobo dwarf gets released from prison and he kills his whole family. You're like, what the hell? Like, who made this story? And then the hobo, dwarf, he like summons the god Kazakh Thul, and then his body blows up from the power, and then Kazakh Thul kills everybody. It's just like, who made this stuff? Like, the lore is so wild, but you can see the influences from like the more old school D&D, I guess, style, like the very, the evil lord comes and kills everybody and everybody's dead. It's more like a grim dark
Yeah.
feel to it. So yeah, that's definitely in there. And there's also some of the characters in there, like some of the designers are still around. Tony Garcia's one, who they're on Instagram and Facebook, and I got to talk to them
Okay.
because of the podcast.
Mhm.
And some of the characters in EverQuest are like their actual player characters from their campaign. So
I
they'll tell
love
you like,
that.
oh yeah, Sir Lucen in Freeport, that guard guy, like the head guard of the militia. He was my like evil paladin I used to play in the home group. And you're like, what? Like what? And he's in a video game. It's so crazy.
So it's like you putting Nerf and Perf in one of your campaigns, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. Okay. So I do have a couple more questions here to hit you with, but before
Yeah.
we get to those, I have to surprise you with the question. This is EverQuest trivia time. We gotta
Uh-oh.
know.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I gotta surprise you with this.
Uh-oh.
Now
Uh-oh.
I don't know how difficult or hard this question is. I did pull
Yeah.
this off of a
We'll
big
see.
like list of EverQuest questions, but
Uh,
I don't know. It should be pretty easy.
yeah.
It might be.
Let's
Which
try. Well, I'll
okay.
try. I'll fake it if I don't.
Yeah,
No.
hey,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
if they're not all super into RuneQuest. Oh my god, EverQuest as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see it. All right.
Okay.
Which of these zones lies the furthest north? Okay.
Okay. I'm ready.
The Nectarless Forest, the Skyfire Mountains, East Freeport, or the Cobalt Scar?
The Skyfire Mountains.
Skyfire Mountains. Well, as I said, I
Yeah?
didn't know if it would be difficult, but it must have been because it is actually Nectarless Forest.
Nectarless Forest. Wait,
It says
Skyfire. I'm thinking of Lava Storm Mountain. Sorry.
so.
Yeah, it is Nectarless. I'm thinking I got mixed up with Lava Storm. Yeah,
God,
Skyfire's in
gotta
Kumar.
cancel the podcast now.
That's it.
God,
I'm done. I'm ruined. Oh, Nerf and Perps.
it was all a fake.
Bad Nerf and Perp. Oh, that's it.
Okay, so
No, you're right. You're
um,
right. It's Nectarless. Yeah. Do you have any other ones? I got to redeem
oh,
myself.
I can shoot them out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
let's
get. Let's,
go.
I got to get one right.
Okay,
Otherwise,
let's go.
I gotta call it quits.
Sure. Sure. Let's go with which zone is a combination of the names of two gods? And, I can actually just give you a multiple choice on that one as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just kidding, I can't. It says these are two of the more well-known gods, though.
Hmm. Karana?
The name of two combination of the names of two gods.
What zone? Interesting. I think,
Um,
oh, wow.
how about I give you a hint? How about I give you a hint?
Go, give me a hint.
It is the Prince of Hate and the Lord of
Oh,
Fear.
Inithul Swamp.
Anthony Swamp. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, all right,
Yeah,
boom.
nice.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, all right, redeemed.
There you go. It's a combination of Inaruk and
Yeah, Kazakh
Kazakh
Thul.
Thul.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
awesome, awesome. See, there you go.
Boom,
Redemption arc.
boom. The first one was the easy one. I'm kicking myself in the head for that one. Mm,
It's okay.
mm,
Hey,
mm,
you
mm.
came back. You came back though. Playing MMOs for the longest time before I even did anything. Unfortunately, I didn't jump on the Everquest train, but I was on like Star Wars Galaxies. I was
Mm,
on,
mm.
World of Warcraft and all that stuff. I was big into Star Wars Galaxies, but I know there was some times that I remember still to this day where I was like, okay, that made my experience. That is why I love this game. And from now on, I will tell everybody about it. And hell, you made a podcast about it. What is one super specific or maybe even obscure thing about EverQuest that happened? Hey, hello, hi, dog. Sorry if you could hear that. My dog just started going crazy.
No
Uh,
worries.
is there something super specific or something obscure that you could share that happened to you in EverQuest that would just like made the
Yeah,
game for you?
yeah. So this is kind of like a messed up story, I guess. But it, like, so I always, again, I'm in middle school. I'm going to tell you, I'm in middle school, and we played on the PvP server, so player versus player server. We could kill
Right.
other players, and I remember I'm in the Gnome City, and I think about this all the time, right? I'm in there, and I'm like going to buy some stuff. I forget what. And someone in the zone's like, "Hey, I need to go to the bank." So there's a bank in the zone where you like deposit your money, right? Because you don't want to be walking around with your money because someone could kill you and take your money. So,
Old school
let's
MMOs,
go.
old school.
So this dude's like, "Hey, I need it. I need someone to help me go to the bank." I'm like, "Oh, hey, I'll take you to the bank." He's like, "Oh, thanks, buddy." So I start leading him down these dark back alleys of Akanon. He's like, "Does doesn't look like where the bank is." I'm like, "It's not." And I turned around and killed him, and I took all his money, and I can't live with myself anymore. I feel so bad. I feel so bad of what happened, but I'm ashamed.
That poor
But
guy.
I don't know
Oh
if he's like
no.
out there and he's like, "Screw you," like whoever that is.
Oh
I'm
no.
sorry. That was middle school, Anthony. Apologies.
That is too freaking funny though. Oh my goodness. That is like one of those things, it's like, "Okay, well, at least I got it off my chest now," and
Yeah, I've grown. I've grown a lot since that experience, so I'm in a better
Oh my
place.
gosh. And like I was saying, old school MMOs where it's like, you die and you lose everything, and,
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's oh man, it was like that in Star Wars Galaxies, it was like that in RuneScape, and, oh my goodness, that was rough, rough times.
It
And
was.
PvP servers were rough too because of that.
Oh
It was
yeah,
crazy. So, I mean, we have kinda gone through the gamut with the interview. We've done we talked about your writing career, we've talked about your military career, and even, your podcast and your upcoming stuff. I'd love to talk to you real quick. You said you had mentioned that you have maybe a sneak peek or maybe something coming up, that is not even, included with the Tenacious Bard versus
yeah.
Orca thing.
So MCDM has the Arcadia magazine, and I have an article in their next issue, which I believe is going to release on Wednesday of this week, so the day before Thanksgiving. And that one I think is my most innovative design I've ever done. Like I said, Tenacious
Really?
Bard was pro- I'll probably put this one a little bit above Tenacious Bard. Okay. And what this one is it's called Defend Your Gobbo Cave. And you play as pre-generated goblins. There's 4 different types.
Yep.
Each goblin has like its special power, okay, or like a special theme to it. One of them is kind of like inspired by, Arnold Schwarzenegger. One of them's inspired by like a little baby with like big eyes that will slit your throat when you're not looking. One of them's inspired by emo, like it's called an emoblin. It's
Oh
emo
my
goblin,
gosh.
and so there's like these different gobos, and there's different. What you do is you have each gobbo has a room, like a special room for their cave,
Okay.
and so you start the game and you build the cave however you want, and you get to configure it a special way, and then enemies attack and you have to defend it, and
Oh,
you get to go ham wild with traps, killing people, blowing people up, killing each other, getting points, and a bunch of wild stuff. It's just, and there's music built in, so each room
of
is
course.
thematically tied to a Spotify playlist. So when you go into the room, it'll play music thematically tied to that room, and it's just like you've never played a game of D&D like it. It's just bananas.
It's a
You're
K
gonna die, but the good thing is like you come back alive, maybe, and you get killed, and you can kill your friends, and you can kill a bunch of bad guys, and it's a lot of fun.
hell
Yeah,
yeah.
it's
Chaos
wild.
goblins. I love it. I
That's right.
love the theme
Yeah,
already.
yeah.
That's great.
Defend your Gobbo Cave coming out this week.
That's
Yeah,
wonderful. It's like a chaotic tower defense or something,
yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That's so good. I love it. Awesome, awesome. So I'd love to see, I know I see a few people in chat. I know it's a little bit late, but, I would love to kind of pick their minds if they have any questions for you at this time. Now would be the time, guys. If you have
Happy to answer.
anything
Yeah,
yeah, if you have anything for him, please shoot it his way, and I'll read it off and then be, more than happy to answer anything you guys have for us. I will scroll up. I know there was one earlier, and I said, "Why don't you let's save that for the end." Let's see. Where was it? Let's see. Let us know if Nazi Dracula Must Die is ever coming back. I'm
yes.
still sitting on the backing.
So Nazi Dracula Must Die. Oh, that was the one that got away. That was a collaboration with myself, Justice Armin, MT Black, Sadie Lowry, a bunch of other awesome creators, and also Brian Patterson, who did the art for this one. Um, we tried it. We tried a very aggressive funding goal on Kickstarter to kind of break industry pay rates in terms of paying our people really well. So we paid our writers like 20 cents a word, our editors 10 cents a word, extremely well for this, and we paid out of pocket too. And we tried to fund it. It didn't fund. So the concept is still there, but unfortunately, everybody's kind of moved on to different projects, and I don't think we will see that anytime soon coming back. It was something we all liked and we all were passionate about, but you know, the people have spoken. Right, Caesar put his finger down, and so it's on to the next thing for now. But hopefully, one day, who knows?
No, that's great. I mean, it's not great that it didn't make it, make its goal or anything like that, but I do hope that, obviously it made an impact on somebody here, so, I
Yeah.
do hope that it either gets a reboot or something like that.
Well, yeah, with any defeat, right? There's some lessons to be learned. So as you see now, Brian Patterson and I are working together now, be mainly because of that, because he did the art for that, and he liked
Oh,
working with
okay,
me,
yeah.
and I liked working with him. So because of that, we're doing the Tenacious Bard versus Orcas together. So the lineage is there.
Yeah, perfect, perfect.
I appreciate you backing out there. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, that was a kind of a good call out there. Let's see, there was one. Let's see, Oh, yeah, so, speaking of, like, your children's books and stuff like that, there is, a lot of children's D&D, campaigns and settings and stuff like that that you wrote your
Yeah,
adventures. I had a scrolling by of a few of the adventures and stuff like that. You, care to talk about those a little bit more?
yeah. There's some though. I have a lot of adventures. It's kind of weird, I guess. Because my writing is either like comedic and funny or dark and grim, and then like children adventures. It's like what
Hey,
the heck?
it's multifaceted,
Yeah, yeah.
multifaceted.
But being a father of three boys, like that has come to me. So the little astronaut is one that I like, and I actually play that with my children. They love it, and it's a bedtime adventure. It's a adventure you're supposed to play in about 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes with children, around the age of 3 to 5 range.
Right.
Can maybe go a little bit older, but they don't have a lot of attention, right? They're like squirrel, so this is made to bring them in, hyper focus them, and kind of just see what their creative process is. And you kind of go through this little space station with a little astronaut, and you experience things like, little dancing fairies, and some ogres that are juggling, and little space monsters. And the children, you get to ask them like, hey, what do you say to this creature, or what are they wearing? And they'll reply, and they'll say some wild stuff, your kids. And
Oh,
there's
yeah.
like,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. And there's like, they always ask, can we play Little Astronaut? So it's a fun one to play with your kids, in their first time in D&D. And all they do is they roll a d20. There's not a lot to it. They just roll a d20 and stuff happens. I have some other ones. The monster of Wondaria that I just came out with as part of the DM's Guild Spotlight program. And that one is kind of, it's based around children. And you go to this like new Feywild domain
Right.
where, I don't want to spoil it, but there's like little children versions of yourself that you interact with, and it can be kind of emotional, in the journey that you go through with these little children. At the end, there's kind of like a twist, and it could be just an emotional, fulfilling journey that allows your character to change in a positive way and grow from it. So that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, children are the future is children, right? So like getting them in young to play D&D or play TTRPGs and is just what I like to. I try to do that as well through my design. So I do play around with concepts of how do I reach younger children, because I think it's healthy for them to like
Oh,
socialize
absolutely.
and role play.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and children learn through like social cues. So if they do something, not correct in terms of like they steal something from somebody in the game, you can say, hey, that's not good, and there could be a consequence in the game, and they can kind of learn through that, like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't steal stuff. And so it's a learning tool in a way to teach things to children.
I totally I'm 100% down for children playing D&D, and also, like, learning through the aspects of the different things that D&D can offer. And not D&D in general, but like TTRPGs in general, like all kinds of different people writing for these things. And it's wonderful. And as you can see, the chat really kind of dug into the children's books thing. I guess we have a lot of people with kids in the
Oh
audience, but
yeah.
um, yeah, I absolutely love it. One of the questions that what would be your dream domain of delight to join yourself, I guess, if you were
Ooh,
joining one.
if I was joining a dream domain of delight, well, I mean, I would have to be biased and say Wondaria because it's,
Of course.
not only because I made it, but my abuela, she is inspired by the Feywild, the Archfey of that domain. So when you go there, you have this like grandmotherly figure who cooks this great food. Like tonight, I just had chicken fricassee, which is her recipe. So like I would want to eat the good food that's in Wondaria and then like, spend some time with
Oh, yeah.
her. So
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
that I think, for Feywild domains, Wondaria is one I like. There's a lot of other good ones on the DM's Guild. Bianca Bickford has some, Paul Gabbett, Justice Armin. Again, just if you want to get some really cool, Feywild domains, go to DM's Guild. They're on the top banner. You'll see the special spotlight banner, and each adventure that you see is its own special domain with an adventure. So you can look for yourself, and see which ones you like. Try them
Oh,
out.
yeah, I mean, and it's packed. You got tons of choices that you can pick from too, so it's really, really cool. And big shout out to Little Astronaut, so,
Thank you.
um, yeah, absolutely, and of course, the Witchlight. Um Excuse me. So I did want to point out one thing too. Because you have children, I have children myself, and I've yet to really. They're 13, 3, and 1. So I'm like just on the verge of introducing it to the younger ones. I'm already
Yeah.
playing with the older one, but what is maybe something that you can suggest to keeping a younger person's attention span like
Yeah.
going while playing these games?
So that's a good question. Go in knowing that you're going to do a 10 to 15-minute session. That's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
No character creation, none of that. And again, so you're playing like D&D or TTRPG light, and it's really revolved around just the one die. And so get them a little dice and just have them the act of rolling stuff, and just like coming up on the fly with asking them like, what does this person say, or what does that creature say to you, or what do you see? Like there's a box and it's making noise and it's giggling. You look inside and what do you see? So when you engage them those type of in that type of way, more of what do you see instead of telling them, you're going to get their creative process to trigger. They're going to get engaged. They're going to focus on what you're asking, and they're going to provide you something, and then they're going to give you the material of like kind of how to take it next. You know, they might
Yeah.
say there's an elephant in there. And so you're like, what? Then you get to, play up the elephant,
Yeah.
like the stuff
It helps your imagination too.
yeah, yeah, it does. So like get in, I would say the difference is in D&D or in TTRPGs when we have the traditional adult, the DM is doing more of the arbitration of what is around them in the world. But when you play with a child, let the child arbitrate some of that. And when you do, they'll get more involved because they're not being talked to. Now they're a part of the storytelling, and their imagination is going to just fire off, and you're going to
Yeah.
have all kinds of wild stuff.
That's
So,
huge. I absolutely love that. I adore that. I literally buy these, like, huge
oh,
dice,
nice.
so that the kids can roll
Heck
the
yeah.
dice and stuff like that, and they love them. They love them. They grab them. I have it out there, but I have, like, a giant plushie D20,
Ooh,
and so they
nice.
throw around the D20 and everything like that. They
Nice.
absolutely love it. I'm a dice goblin, so I have dice literally just everywhere.
Yeah.
So, there's, like, dice, dice, dice.
I do have one more thing to add here. So this is something
Yeah,
I
go
do
for
with
it.
my children with the little astronaut, and it's just I want you to take away the concept. I'm not trying to like plug my thing here, but the adventure takes place in space, right? So I incorporate technology into the experience. What I do is like I'll have I go on YouTube and I find a space shuttle launch, and so I turn off all the lights in the room. I put it up on the computer, and so before we play Little Astronaut, I say, okay, we're gonna go to the space station. So I'll play the like space launch thing, and they're like sitting on my lap, and I'll start shaking that. Oh, we're going to space, and they get like super excited. They're like, oh, we're going to space, And then like I'm like, okay, you're in the space station now, and I'll play like a little like that spacey type of music on like Spotify or something, and then I get them into the mood. So like incorporating like audio and visual for children and gets them really into it. They're like, oh wow, we're in space, and look, and then when we come back, I'll find like a shuttle landing video, and I'll play like 10 seconds of that, and we're like, okay, we're landing now, yay, we're back on Earth, and they like that, they eat it up. It's fun and it's cheap.
Yeah.
It's YouTube,
I mean, that's just it eats at my heart because my 3-year-old right now is just now really peeking into, like, having an imagination, where she'll go and grab something and she's like, "Okay, this is the doctor, and then this right here is the patient," and it'll be literally like a Lego block and, like, a Barbie kinda thing, and
yeah.
so it's like, "Okay, well, if you can imagine this as the patient, like, you can see the wheels turning in there.
Mhm.
That imagination is firing off already, and pulling these TTRPGs out to really, like, kinda dive into it and build those from the ground up is
Mhm.
that's gonna be so cool, and I can't wait to actually jump into probably one of your adventures, if I'm being honest, to really bring it to the kids and see how they enjoy it.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Anthony, it has been an absolute pleasure. An absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me on the first episode of Nat One on One. Man, it has just been so awesome to get to meet you and get to talk to you and learn about your process. I'm so happy to find to meet a military member who is doing all the stuff that other people wish they could do, like, without having to do the military stuff. Like, you're a Superman in terms of all the things you do right now, so
Oh, thank
hats
you.
off to you. Hats off to you.
And I gotta ask, what service were you in?
Oh, I was Air Force, actually. Yeah, I
Oh, the
was
Air
10 years
Force. You
Air
got
Force.
it good. You got
Yeah.
it good. Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh
absolutely.
man.
I loved listening to your going backs and forth between the Army and the Navy thing, and the only
Oh,
thing I was thinking about the whole time, I'm like, "Oh, thank
oh,
God I'm not there because I was Air Force,
the
and I
Air
know
Force.
both of them would be digging on me so
Oh, we
hard."
would, we would. I was stationed at Scott Air Force Base, Illinois for a year and a half. And I just got to say, everybody out there, if you join the Air Force, you've done the right thing because, man, they had it so good. I was like, what the hell's going on here? They have like palaces and great food and stuff. I'm like,
Oh,
oh,
yeah.
man.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm
If
just
you want
jealous.
No, no, if you wanna join the military, join the army. If you wanna join, like, get a job and, like, have a military uniform, join the Air Force. So
100%, 100%. That's good stuff. Well, thanks again for having me on, Dan. I really
Yeah,
appreciate it, man.
absolutely, and thank you everybody for joining us here on the live stream. If you're listening to the podcast, thank you very much, I do appreciate it. I hope to see you guys all back for the next episode of Nat One on One. We will be putting these episodes out on YouTube as well, so you guys can see the actual, picture, and the video along with the audio, and I will have subtitles as well, so those that, are hearing impaired can have a chance to also watch alongside. So, guys, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It is getting late. I appreciate all your questions. And again, last thank you to Anthony for being here. And everybody, as I kind of sign off with everything I do, keep being your best selves. Bye, everybody.